We have finally made it to the last video in our course. In this one, we will discuss the radix section in Arnold, so let's get started. For this video, we have a fairly simple setup. It's almost identical to the last time when we were discussing the sampling video. So let's dive into it. Let's start by opening our IBR, head to Arnold, and then press on the IBR window. Put it on the right of your viewer, like this. Make it a bit more bigger, and open up your diffuse null, and then hit Ctrl B to open up your render settings. Put it on the left around here, and then open the radix section. As you can see, we have 6 values to play with, starting with the total and ending with the transparency depth. The radix section is responsible for how many times would any light ray coming out of our source light would go and bounce in our scene from object to another. Starting with the total value, at the value of 10, as you can see, we want you to think of this total value as the maximum number that any ray in the scene would bounce. So for example, if we have a value of 13 in the diffuse, it will be reduced to 10 because we have a total or a maximum number of bounces at 10. For now, let's reset our diffuse value. It's 1. And let's discuss what is the diffuse value under the radix section. I'll start by making it a 0. Immediately on the right in the IBR, you can see that our shadows are completely black. That's because we've eliminated any kind of secondary bounces to the rays, so we're only seeing the direct light that our source light is giving us. Let's increase this 0 to be 1. And around here in the shadows, as you can see, it's a bit more brighter because we already have one more ray bounce in the diffuse section in our scene. So let's increase this 1 to around 3. Since we increased the number of bounces any ray can bounce, it made our scene look brighter in the areas that are lit by the bounces, like in these shadows for example. Let's go with the value of 6 for now and let it render it. The difference between 3 and 6 isn't huge, but it's still there. Mostly you would need these high values in the interior shots, and that would be it for the diffuse value. Let's hide our diffuse null and open up our specular null. To start, let's zero out our specular. Immediately you can see that our spheres are pitch black, and we can only see the reflection of our source light in the spheres. Let's increase the specular. Instead of 0, let's use a value of 1. After increasing the value to 1, we started seeing the normal reflections of the surrounding object, which is our backdrop and our source light, reflecting our spheres. But the reflections of the spheres on top of each other isn't looking right. Let's increase this value. Instead of 1, let's use 2. As you can see, it's starting to get better. Let's increase it one more time to 3. For this specific scene, we don't need any more than 3 for the specular, but if we have any more reflective objects like this and we want to make the reflection of them look right, we would need to increase this value even more. So that would be it for the specular. Let's move on to the transmission by opening up its null. The transmission value defaults to 8. Let's make it 0. Because we've made it 0, we eliminated the transmission effect completely. Let's increase it by 1. That made us started seeing the reflections of the surrounding object. Let's go with the value of 2. We started seeing the effect of the glass again, but on the right there's still some black spots. We would need to increase the value even more to get rid of this black area right here. Let's go with the value of 6. So by increasing the transmission value under the ray depth section, we're allowing the light rays to penetrate and go through our glass object. Let's increase it even more to 8. Considering what we have in this simple scene, we don't need anything more than 8, so let's leave it like this. And that would be it for the transmission values. For the volume, I'll be using the examples from the Arnold's manual. I have them already opened in my picture viewer, so I'll press Shift F6. This is how it would look if we have a value of 0 in the volume ray depth section. And this is what we will have if we have a value of 5, because with the value of 5 we allowed the light ray to penetrate and go through the volume of the cloud as much as possible up until 5 times of bounces, so it look more physically accurate and better. And now let's move on to our final value, which is the transparency depth. Let's minimize our picture viewer and open up the transparency null. Let's open up the material editor so I'd show you what I have in this material here. I'll double click it and move my material editor to the left around here. Under the geometry tab you would find the cutout opacity, and right next to it you would find a gray color. Let's click on it, and from the color chooser you would find this V, which is the value. Let's make it 100. On the right you would notice that our spheres are completely visible. Let's try making this value a 0, and our spheres are completely invisible, they are gone. I want you to think of this value or V as the opacity in the After Effects. It's almost the same. With a value of 0 or 100% black, the object will disappear, and with the value of 100 or completely white, the object will be completely visible. Let's make it a 50% and press enter and close this color chooser and close our material editor and go back to the render settings again. Let's start by making this transparency depth 0 and then gradually increasing it. Let's start with the value of 2. With the value of 2, that means we allowed the ray to penetrate the back and the face of the first object that it hits. Let's try a value of 4. We've multiplied that number so the ray can penetrate 4 times, for example 2 faces and 2 backs of one object. With the value of 6, we've allowed the ray to penetrate our 3 spheres, 3 backs and 3 faces, so it can completely go from the start of the first sphere to the end of the last sphere, and it allows it to be transparent as we determined it in the geometry section. Finally, we've finished our course. I hope you had fun and learned something. Thanks for watching.